Hello. Good day, friends. I hope it's a good day for you. It's been a few days since I did a video. It's been over a week, actually. And I had a vacation and I took a hiatus and there was a lot going on. And so I wanted to do something a little different with this video. And that is that there are some themes going on behind the scenes. I thought that it would help if I explained what the themes are. And to do that, what I did was I put together like a little presentation and how the energy moves in the human energy field. I picked some situations that are basically specifically related to current themes that I see. I thought that if I did that, it would significantly assist in helping to explain what the heck is going on. Because, you know, it's interesting. We had these big waves earlier in the summer, and so that seemed pretty obvious that there was some really amazing energy coming in. But we've had a new moon, and at the same time, the energies have been a little bit more muted by visual looking at the chart. But you see, I feel that there's a lot going on here and a lot going on behind the scenes. So how do you take something that looks like this and make sense of it in our daily lives? That's kind of a key focus for me and something I like thinking about. The reason that I like thinking about it is because really since since I was a child, really, I've thought about energy like through my whole life, how it moves, how it flows, different thoughts, memories, playing with it. And it's interesting because what happened was several years ago, and I always thought that these were kind of daydreams that I had that wouldn't really amount to much except for entertaining myself with these ideas. What happened was in a short period of time, I came across 4 different inventors. And these inventors were all working in the area of technologies that use sort of subtle energies. What happened was I realized that these ideas that I had been playing with for so long helped me to really understand what was going on with these energies. As I delved more into it, I understood that all this experience over the years of thinking through these things actually helped me understand the physics of how energy moves. And then one day what happened was I had a potential client call me, and it was funny because she went on and on about her relationship with her husband. And it was something that I hadn't known the conversation would go this way, but that's the way it went. It was amazing. I hung up with her and I started to write page after page after page of how all these things I've been thinking about, including the work and thoughts I'd had after working with these inventors, how it applied to human beings and the human energy field. And so here we are now. Years later, I've been really working on develop these ideas in my mind for a long time. And so I'm really grateful to be able to share this with you and to use the Schumann resonance as a way to talk about this. I have been dreaming about doing this for years. I didn't know that it would look like YouTube videos. In fact, I had no idea about that. But I've been dreaming about interacting with people like yourselves in a format where I could talk about my work and we could interact together as we do in the comment section. And some of you send me emails and things, and some people do sessions. I feel so grateful to now have this, to be at this point now. So thank you all for being here and for participating in the channel. I'm sorry that it was a while since I made my last video. What I did was, in creating these images that I'm going to show you that will explain a lot about the energies, it was, well, what I went through over the last week and a half, let's just say, the working through all these images benefited me a lot. I was looking for tools, and I could see that what I was feeling was also reflected in the Schumann, but how would I explain that properly? That's kind of what I was thinking about. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have the Schumann discussion at the end of this video. Normally I started at the beginning. I'm going to do what I've been calling inspired energy musings. These ideas that I'm going to talk through with you, well, basically, this is a summary of where we go, okay? But I want to explain in terms of, as a human being with a human energy field, how this works in your field. And below in the comments, I'm going to put the time that the Schumann part starts. Check this out. So this is the first thing that I wanted to show you. We've had a fire in the county. So what I did on this day was I drove out and drove towards the fire, and I parked at a safe distance where also I wasn't interfering with any of the first responders, so I didn't get that close. And I started to, I started praying, but my way of praying when it comes to the land is basically to just send love, and it's like I put my heart on the land, and then I just love the land. And what I do is I connect with the heart of the earth, Mother Earth. And so I love the land here. And I know that Mother Earth's heart, basically her heart and my heart, they rise up, and she rises up the most because it's a big planet. She rises up to meet me. And in setting that attention, what I intend is that it brings the highest good to the land, however that transpires. I want to show you another interesting image. I didn't know I was going to show this to you guys, but it just came to me that I should show you this. Okay, so what happened was on Monday, the 17th, I happened to be somewhere, and my spiritual guidance had told me that was going to be where I needed to be when I got back from vacation. Everybody's wearing masks outside and all this sort of thing, and people basically don't talk to you or look you in the eyes at this point in the shutdown of everything due to this virus. They don't look in you in the eyes, and they don't talk to you. If they don't know you, they don't get near you. It's pretty unfriendly. Although this has always been a wonderful, friendly place to live. But I know in my heart that that's all still there under the surface. That's what I keep telling myself. So anyway, it was Monday, it was morning, and I'm standing there in my mask, waiting for something, when suddenly the lady to my left spoke to me, which was very unusual because of what I just described to you. So therefore I paid attention. And she looked at me and she said, look over there. See the, it's like fog, but it's whipping up, and it was in a line coming over this light hill. She said, I think that's fire. And she wanted to know what I thought. So I went over to her and I said, okay, let me take a look. So I took off my mask and I started smelling the air and smelling to see if I could see if there was any burning smell. And the funny thing was, there was a slight smell in the air, but I didn't see any, I didn't feel like it was fire, but it really looked unusual. It was extremely low fog touching the town, essentially. And given the conditions of that morning for that microclimate, it was unusual. And we were talking about it, and suddenly, it just evaporated. Then suddenly another series of white fog just appeared, and these tall strands of fog were now coming up off of the land. Now we're looking at a distance, so I can't see the location that they're coming off of, but they're there. And they rise up, and we were looking at it, and I said, well, I don't hear any fire sirens. Nobody else seems to be reporting anything. I really don't smell strong smoke. The fog coming up was white. It wasn't dark. It didn't look like something had burned. As soon as those tendrils blew up, blew meaning the air, okay, so the wind seemed to push them up, and suddenly they were up in the sky and they were gone. As soon as that happened, the wind went from like 0 to 50 miles an hour. It just went and it just took off. And she and I were standing there, and we were in front of a tent. The place we were outside had a one of those outdoor tents that protects you from the sun, about 10 by 10. And the wind literally in a couple of seconds lifted the thing up, and it started blowing straight towards traffic and street. And a couple of people ran out of the business and chased it down. I didn't do anything about that because I knew that my role was to observe. And so I felt the air, I felt the wind, and I just paid attention. And I turned to the lady and I looked at her and I said, I'm going to go now. Okay? Be safe. And I knew that the conditions that I was experiencing felt a lot like the stories that I had heard before the fires happened in Santa Rosa. I was immediately, all my red alarm, red alert. And so I got in my car, but before I got in my car, I looked up in the sky and I could see there were two particular really dark areas of the sky that were low to the ground close to the town. One of the shapes, the cloud shapes, had a kind of an oval, and it had a, if you've ever seen a lenticular cloud, they sort of have ridges going upward in the sky. Well, this had the lenticular sort of vibrations around the oval, but they were going out horizontally from the center of this cloud. And I looked up at that and I thought, wow, that's really unusual. We don't see that around here very much. So I thought, I'm going to go and park my car where I have a good view of the sky and take photos as fast as I can. So I got out and I got into the parking lot, got out of the car, and I stayed near the car because the wind's whipping up and it just feels really strange out. And I look up and I start taking photos. One of the photos in particular had an unusual aspect to it, and that's right here. So what happened was I got centered in my heart and I called in the divine, into my field. I knew my field was clear, and I embodied the divinity that I am, my soul, as much as I could in my energy and in my physical body. And I looked up at the two clouds, one on the left and one on the right, and I looked at the one on the left and I looked straight up to it, and I sat in the presence of the energy of the divine, and I looked up as a human being co-creating with the divine, and I said, I do not consent to the destruction of my home, meaning of this town in my county, okay? And then I looked up to the other dark cloud with all the ripples at the edge, the ovalish one, and I kept that same energy, and I looked up and I said, I do not consent to this. I do not consent to the destruction of my home. And I breathed, and my guidance told me to get in the car. Within a few minutes, the clouds moved off. Okay, so here's my first thing that I want to share with you, that every human being, all of us, have the ability to embody the divine. It's who we are. We are children of the Creator. We have a living soul. The body is the temple of the soul. That's what Scripture says. And the living human being in the body is the living temple of the soul. Okay, so I am alive. The soul is alive in me. And it's interesting because, and I've said before, I like to use Scripture because I see physics and energy in Scripture. So Jesus said, okay, the golden rule, what his kind of, if you summed all his teachings down, someone taught me this, so that his phrase that he said, love your neighbor as yourself, that crystallized like everything that he taught and was about. Well, it's interesting because when I was growing up and learning, and it was always the love your neighbor aspect that was emphasized. Care about others, and it was really before yourself, right? Like that's how I was taught anyway. Well, what I realized as I began to ponder these things over time and to think about them, and I thought about what Jesus said about love your neighbor as yourself. What I realized was that what Jesus was saying was love yourself and then love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. And when I came to realize that the physical body is the temple of the soul, the living temple of the living soul, okay? The life force that is the divine within you, that's when I realized why it's so important to love myself. Now, I'm a human being and, I have my moments, so it's not always easy to love myself. But this mental information helps me understand why that's so important and why I'm important as a person. And I share this with you because you are the same way. You're important as a person because of who you are. because of what you embody. And the fact is once we enter into a relationship with the light within, that is who we are, we begin to be able to co-create with the divine within us. And that's when you can look up and say, in the highest good, okay? I want to just add that I added, is this in the highest good? Before I did it, I talked to my angels. I talked to Archangel Michael, and I said, is this in the highest good that I do this? And I laid it all out. I knew what I was going to say, what I felt guided to say, and I got confirmation. Yes, go, this is in the highest good. So that's why I stated, I do not consent, okay? I do not consent to what is happening in the highest good, okay? May the highest good prevail. So when I make a statement, when I'm co-creating with the divinity that is a part of me, right, is who I truly am, but I don't remember, I always say in the highest good. And what I'm doing is I'm giving it to God. I'm allowing divine will to be the ultimate arbiter. Why do I say I'm allowing divine will? Oh my goodness, I'm a human being. What am I doing? God gave us free will choice, okay? So does this relate to what I'm going to talk about next? Yes, it does, okay? It's the backdrop. God gave us free will choice. Therefore, I allow my soul to come into me. I allow my soul to heal me. I allow my soul to work with me with my permission. Isn't it amazing that this is how God treats us? And then I humbly say that when you invite that in, oh my goodness, it's just amazing. Now there's this whole thing that people talk about submitting to God's will. What I like to say is that I align with God's will, 1-to-1. That's my goal as a human being. Now, I'm a human being and I'm fallible as a human being, obviously. So I do the best I can, right? The reason that I've shifted from the word submitting to God's will, which is used a lot, is because it has a lot of connotations to it that have to do with higher than, lower than. And it seems to not put us in a 1-to-1 relationship with God. And it's my view that that's what my soul wants from me and the divine wants from me, is it doesn't want me to bow down and lower my head and kneel and all this stuff, although I do kneel, okay? Because when you're in the presence of that energy, you can't help but, if you really feel it, you can't help but shake and then maybe not even be able to stand, right? That's why you kneel. But what I'm saying is that when I've been in meditation, and for example, if I've had a spiritual being come to me in meditation and want to interact with me or teach me something, early on when I was doing this, I used to bow, right? I used to bow and bow my head down, because I felt like they were better than me or they were greater than me. And what I found, now I'm saying this is my human impression, okay, is that they were kind of annoyed. So funny. It was kind of like that tap, 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 like finger tapping on their, on the shoulder. Like, when are you going to see that I want to speak to you as an equal? Because think about it this way, right? If someone comes to you and they're putting you on a pedestal, can you interact with them as you would with just sort of a normal family member or friend who's not going to do that to you? No, right? For me to really be able to learn from the spiritual guidance that I was receiving, I had to understand that I was worthy. And even in human life, sometimes it's hard to bring these things from the spiritual into human life because of, just everything about living as a human being in society and all these things. But anyway, so one day I just got up and I just looked my spiritual guide in the eye, and my whole relationship with the divine changed in a really big positive way, for the better. And I'm talking whether it's no matter who it is. I mean, name your spiritual person, your spiritual entity that you feel close to. If a being comes to you in meditation and expects you to bow before them, if a being comes to you in meditation and enjoys the fact that you're supplicating to them or that you're quote unquote submitting to them, then you're pretty much looking at false light. I'm just telling you, because that's my personal experience, okay? Because Jesus isn't going to treat me that way, okay? Archangel Michael is not going to treat me that way. Mother Mary is not going to treat me that way. So the reason I wanted to tell that part of the story is to tell you that you can do this too, okay? We all can. And so when you're looking at things going on, the chaos around you, you can look at the crowd and say, I do not consent to this destruction in my town. Okay, I do not consent to this destruction being present in my country. And when you do it in alignment with the highest good, or whatever your words are for that, okay, because you don't need to use my words. Use what resonates within for you, okay, in alignment with however you do your spiritual practices. But what I'm doing is, bottom line, I'm expressing how I feel guided in alignment with divine will, okay, in alignment with how my spiritual guidance, what it's showing me to do or say. That's the first thing. I feel that it's in alignment. I check in if I feel it's in highest good, if I'm guided in the highest good. And then I make my statement. It could be out loud verbally. It could be within. Just say it to yourself, because all the spiritual beings are telepathic. The non-physical can hear you. And the fact is whatever it was up in those clouds, it doesn't matter. As a living human being, I have the authority. I was born on this planet. I'm a living soul. I have the authority to express my opinion, especially when I've been guided that way. Actually, it wasn't an opinion, it was a statement, right? It was an intention. Anyway, what happened was the clouds dissipated and moved off, and lightning struck elsewhere in the county. On the plus side, it was in a remote area. The fire's still going on, and praying that the highest good prevail. Here's the smoke in front of the sun. My friend who's a biologist, Alex, and she was telling me, Susan, because a lot of redwoods have been burning, and I feel bad because those trees only grow on the West Coast. I don't know, wherever they grow, and I was feeling badly about that. But she said, Susan, the forest needs renewal. A lot of redwood seeds, they need fire to be able to pop open and grow. And I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought of the fire as renewing, which is funny because I like to often talk on the videos about the sacred fire in energy. Well, fire in the physical can be sacred as well. This is the one image where I found this. It was a beam of light going horizontally across the sky. So what I did was I color adjusted this photo, and what you can see here is that can you see all the, I don't know if on YouTube you'll be able to see this, but there's all these different interesting patterns here. Okay, here down here, do you see how the patterns continue below the beam? Now, when you look in the cloud layer, I'm going to go higher up over to here. It just feels like the pattern is different. And I tried to darken this up, but I couldn't get the lines dark enough to be confident that you'd be able to see it on YouTube. Here's the beginning of the cloud layer. Here's the actual beam. Okay, isn't that interesting? It's different, right? Definitely different. It felt to me like some kind of transmission. I don't really know any more than that. I'm just showing this to you because I want you to understand, even though it might seem like there are forces beyond our control, like people talk about, there's advanced technologies and this, these beams are being sent out, and like in Santa Rosa, they were talking about seeing beams into the fires at that time. Now, this is a different one because it's a different kind because it's horizontal. Okay, not vertical, those are vertical. So what I'm saying, though, is that once I made the statement that the two dark clouds moved off and left, okay, and the fire ended up not happening at the town. And I'm just humbly saying that you as a human being can do the exact same thing. No matter what's going on in your life, in your environment, in your town, in your country, you have the authority to voice what is coming through you and what you want to create and what you don't want to create. You can do this. We all can. And it's my belief that as we learn that we are children of God with divine authority, that we can speak into substance, into being, right? When we're guided in alignment with the highest good, right? Invoking God's will, like I leave it to God. Like, so when I say that, when I intend in the highest good, I know that if I've asked for something, if it's not in the highest good, God won't create it, right? I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. If I have an idea that comes to me, how do I know if it's the right thing for everybody, right? I can make these mental assessments, but the divine is omnipresent. The divine knows intimately the soul, the heart of everyone involved. The divine knows intimately what is in the highest good in this situation. And maybe the highest good is for the forest to burn and have renewal. Maybe what was in the highest good wasn't for the town to burn down. And I praise God for that. I praise God for that. I only share this with you because I know that there are those of you out there who already know what I'm talking about. And for those of you for who this is new information, I want you to know, what human beings, why we're special. This is why human beings are so special. Why do you think there's so much focus on us? I'm talking in general as the human race, okay? Why do you think there's so much interest in who we are? Why do you think that there was a matrix that was developed to collect our energies or guide them this way and that, right? Why do you think the demons want to get into the human energy field, right? We got the good stuff. And I'm just going to cancel clear over that, the demons in the field. I've said it before, the antidote to that is to connect with God and state what your intention is, what you will and will not allow in your energy field and your human physical body. But you see that there are many beings in different dimensions that don't have the ability that human beings have to connect with God and the soul, and to have the soul connection be alive and present in the human heart. So this is part 1 of this video. Now I'm going to move to part 2, okay? And this is where I'm going to show you the images that I developed after my interesting week. Okay, so here we have a young man, and you can see what his energy looks like. You can visually see how he's feeling. The photographer who took this photo titled this image Lonely Man. This photo kind of summarizes a lot of how I've been feeling. And if I wasn't feeling like this, I was feeling ragefully angry. It's a little easier for me to do it in energy than to do it in my human life sometimes, I'll be honest. Now what I want to do is I want to show you the human energy field. I've drawn what his energy field looks like. So here he is sitting there, okay? Now this is what I see in energy, and this is an example. The body and soul generates a field around the human being. Now this is part 2 of the video, and this is the part that I want to explain to you that will help understand the Schumann resonance later in the video. But in addition, it helps us to understand how to use our energy in general. Now these brown dots are examples. This person clearly feels down, right? Their energy is compressed. Look at how it is in the field. I want to point out several features of this person's energy field. The first is that in general, the human body and the soul generates an energy field around the person. It's an electromagnetic field, but it's also a higher dimensional field. So it's at different interdimensional layers. So the blue line indicates the field. Now normally this would be a closed circle, but this person's field has holes in it, and that's why there are these spaces here. You can also see that the person's energy is basically weighted towards one part of the field. It's like they're all crunched down, so all the rest of this field here appears, is open and available. This person isn't taking up their whole space. Now, why are they like this? These brown dots here are examples indicating what's gone on. Perhaps there was a physical injury. So I put a little dot here by the leg. Maybe the person was a football player or the sports person or a skier or whatever, and they had an injury, and then that led to other things happening into their lives. Maybe it's mental thinking. So here's the brown dot at the head. Maybe there are mental constructs that the person is sort of stuck within, like mental loops that keep repeating, that bring them down or make them feel not well about themselves. Maybe there's a heartache or emotional issues, things that have happened that have caused the heart to close, that have wounded this person emotionally. I put this brown dot here at the root. Maybe there is trauma of some sort. Could be sexual trauma, could be other kinds of trauma. When there is trauma in the first or second chakra, it makes us ungrounded, because basically the human body grounds energetically into the earth and into the heart of the earth in the very center of the planet. That's sort of the ultimate beneficial energy structure is what I've found. When you start learning meditation or how to work with energy, you'll learn about grounding. A significant number of people, from what I have found, are traumatized. A lot of times traumatized sexually, whether it's from relationships or childhood trauma or ritual abuse or on and on. Whatever has gone on for this person, they are now sort of compressed into just one portion of their energy field. All of this appears open, and now they have holes in the field because they're not really able to maintain a healthy outlook, a healthy field structure. These events that have happened, whatever it was, caused holes in the fields, breached the person's boundaries, or the mental thinking or emotional issues that happened caused the person to open holes in the field for some reason. What happens is I showed the first brown circles as being part of the physical body energy. So you have sort of two energy components. You have your physical body, which is compressed energy, right? Because basically it's particles of energy that are just more tightly packed. But then you have the non-physical component of the energy field, which just emits. And we know that that's the case. For example, the body emits heat. That's an energy, part of the energy field. You can transmit electricity, right? Like when you walk on a carpet in the wintertime and then you get a shock. So you see what I'm saying? That there's energy that's non-physical that interacts and moves out beyond the body and interacts with the body. The physical body itself generates this non-physical field. It's both an EM field and then other things like heat or emotions or thoughts. You not only have the blocked energy or compacted energy in the physical body, but you have energy in the field that's denser now. And it's going to tend to collect. So this person's taking up space in a small part of their field. What's going to happen is that, like, for example, if this person is generating negative thoughts, okay, or is in a thought loop, that's going to then start to create that in the field. It's going to create more of that energy in the field emitting from the body. Or if it's from the heart, whether it's anger or fear now because the heart is blocked, or sexual trauma, so, issues with the self, with potential relationship issues that come up, and that can obviously come up from mental and emotional as well. If there's been an injury or some kind of physical illness or something, then that can generate, it'll just generate more energy in the field, right? As we think about it, as our life gets affected. In general, in this energetic structure, there's a disconnection from the soul connection, from the divine, from God. God doesn't feel alive in this person, in their body. God doesn't feel alive in their field. And by God, I mean the Most High, the creator of the universe, the source that is the soul of the human being. So what happens is that energy will tend to come in through these holes because nature abhors a vacuum, right? So if this person's only living in part of their field, then what happens is there's all this space, like an empty room. Now you have to understand, as I said in part 1 of this video, human beings are especially attractive because we have a beautiful, amazing ability to create. We have so much potential. We have this gorgeous soul. We have the ability to feel love. So energy rushes in because if we're not going to take up that space, it might want to see what it's like to be in our field. That's number 1. Number 2, we basically may call in of our own accord, call in energy. Call in energy through connections with people, through situations in our lives, etc. What happens is that, and this is a cutout of the smoke from the smoky sky. What's going to happen is that like resonates with like. So now what's going to happen is that they're going to be attracting like energy. So here's the smoke, right, in the body, the denser energy, for whatever reason that it's there. So this person is going to come into an environment or call to themselves through simple frequency resonance, like energy. So it's kind of the idea, here's an example. The crowd of people that you hang out with helps determine your destiny in the moment. Why is that? There's non-physical components to your relationship with those people. If this person has this heavy, dense energy in their field, they're now attracting people who also have this, or non-physical energies that have that, or situations that are potentials that are colored with this same denser frequency. So it begins to manifest into the person's life. The other thing that happens is because of the holes, you basically, it's almost like weather systems. You know, when you have a low pressure system, it draws in energy from a higher pressure weather system. For example, the fires at the coast were creating layers of hot air off of the coast. What happened was it created a kind of a cyclonic effect. And my scientist friend explained this to me when we went through the images earlier today. And so thank you to her. But it creates a cyclonic effect because the hotter air started to pull in cooler air, and then it started to spin in a circle and blow the fire in a new direction. And then as that air cooled, the cyclonic effect ended and the air started blowing in the other direction again. It was absolutely fascinating. Well, so by being in this sort of depressed state in the field, it's now drawing in energy. This person is now drawing in energy through the holes. But the question is, what are they drawing in? They're drawing in energy that resonates with the significant frequency that's emanating off of them. You see, they're not drawing in pink hearts and happy giggles, right? They're drawing in stuff that resonates with their energetic structure. Now, this is a person that is unaware that they could change this in the moment, potentially. Now, I have been here. Not just earlier in the week, but in my life. Okay, I've been here, and I didn't know. Okay, so I went through a whole process, and now I'm here, and I can explain to you. What happens is because of the depression here, imagine that depression is kind of like compacted. So it's almost like if this was a terrain, it's like this is higher hills, and this is a valley. See, he's lonely, he's depressed, he's compressing himself in his field. It's like he's creating a valley, and what's going to happen? Energy is going to flow into that valley. But what's going to be, unlike wind, right? Wind is just wind, and it moves from high pressure to low pressure. Well, in this case, it's energy, and it calls to itself that which it is. So this depression here, which is like a physical cup. So he's like at the bottom of a cup. There's a lot of empty space because he's not owning his own body's energy. He's not owning his field. He's not claiming his space in his field. Right? He's not expanding himself. This energy, which is like what is the frequency of what he's holding here in a compressed state, is going to big time flow in from all of these, through all these holes. Okay, so it's just going to flow in there. It's going to flow in here. And this doesn't make things easier. What ends up happening is you end up having like a big heavy cloud over you, kind of like all the smoke that was in the sky. So here he is, and there it is, right? It's like a big bear just over his shoulders. Not a nice place to be. How do you shift this? Okay, so here we are. You see where the resonant frequencies are, right? Here's where the resonant frequency is in him. These are all the potentials, whatever it happens, whether it's the mind, the heart, the emotions, the sexual area, physical issues. Then you've had, you just have this until it's full. Just keeps coming in. until once his field fills up with this, then, then there's an equilibrium. Even if it's an unpleasant equilibrium, energetically, one of the laws of energy in the universe is that the universe achieves balance energetically. So here we go. We're in a nice balanced state now, aren't we? We're compressed within the field at a certain frequency, level of density, and that emits a particular frequency. And the rest of the field is now filled with a balanced energy of the same dense frequency level. Isn't that cool? Now this person is balanced. But they're also probably pretty unhappy because this sucks. Now, not only do they have that in the physical body, but it's in the field and stuff's happening and they're running into situations that match this vibration or people, and people might be taking advantage of them. Maybe now this person's taking advantage of others who have the same depressed energy when they get enough energy to do that. It's just, So what happens is this, okay? Let me do this in 2 steps. This person may have an idea. Eventually, maybe you become so miserable that you're ready for change. And I know that this happened to me, okay? I was so miserable that one day it just occurred to me, this is years ago, it just occurred to me that, I know what life is supposed to be and how I'm supposed to feel, and I don't feel that way. And I wonder how I could change that. And so you get an idea, and often because we're human beings, and especially in our society, the Western civilization, we tend to be very mental, and you might have an idea. Now, you might also have a love activation. It might be that you that you feel love. You might meet somebody, or somebody sees the potential in you and treats you a certain way, whatever it happens to be. So whether it comes from the mind or the heart, even the sexual area, however it comes, okay, you start to get an awakening, and you start to feel like, you know what, maybe life could be different. And what happens then is that this person then sees outside of themselves, this vision that they're aware now that life could be different. Maybe he even looks up, raises his eyes, and looks through all that hair in front of his face and looks outside of him and says, maybe it's a relationship with God. Maybe God could replace this. Maybe my life could change and this could be different, and I could have God there, or I could have connection with the divine, or I could have love in my life again, or I don't know, whatever they're thinking. I could change my life somehow. I could be less miserable somehow, less lonely, or whatever it is. And so they get this awakening, and then what happens is you start to reach out. You start to reach out. In doing that now, what's this person doing? Okay, whether it's from the heart or the mind, and I'm going to pretend now that now it's from the mind. Immediately what happens, as the awareness expands, it pushes this, see this brown dot in the mind? Let's say this awareness is happening from his head, from his thoughts. He's realized life could be different. As the realization expands and he starts to accept this as a potential truth in his life, it elevates and transmutes in the brightness of this light. It transmutes, because that's what a higher frequency will do to denser energy. It's really love that does this, right? Without knowing it, right now he's not going to be able to probably be conscious of it, but it's his love for himself or his love for what could be, right? It actually springs from love, his hope. All these things are love, right? His hope, his expectation that something could be different. And then he reaches out, whether it's an intention first, just an energy, watching videos online. Maybe it's getting a book. Maybe it's taking courses. Maybe it's learning, going back to church. Maybe it's starting to pray to God again. Maybe it's connecting with God through meditation or energy work or whatever it is. And in doing that, now begins to call this closer. See that? See, before, this dense energy was coming closer, because that's what was active in the field. But now where the action is in this person's field, here it is. The lighter, less dense energy, the lighter, more expanded energy, has the most action now. And it draws now a like frequency to itself. Isn't that cool? Oh, it's so awesome. Now, let me show you something else. Now, here's someone else. Now, this is a person who has a really different energy, right? Here's their energy field. Now, what we're going to notice about this field is that it's very clear. So this is a person who has done the work to clear the field. Who knows? Maybe it's even the same guy a few years later, reconnecting with the soul, with the light, with God. By bringing this energy back in, it clears the field of the density. When we're first attempting this, as I showed you with the other man, we tend to perceive that the light is outside of ourselves. We tend to perceive that, now this person's pretty clear. They've been doing a lot of work on themselves, but they still perceive that the light is outside themselves, that God is outside themselves. Do you perceive that God is outside of you? As a human being, I've thought about this, and I like to perceive the spiritual beings as independent and sort of quote-unquote separate from me because I like company. So if I'm talking to Jesus, I'd like to, and I'm in meditation or having a vision of communicating with Jesus or the Divine Mother, I'd like to perceive an image of them, or I'd like to perceive them as a separate being, right? I acknowledge that as a human being, I like that. Okay, I like my spiritual beings to be, sometimes is it a cloud of energy? Sure, but I like to meet them and interact with them like as if they were also human beings. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out because at the same time, if these beings represent God, then surely if we're a child of God, if we have a spark of that light within us, then we are not separate. Pretty amazing to think about that, right? That's why we are worthy simply by our birth, simply by being born. Eventually what happens is that you realize that you are a child of God, that this lives within you, that the body is the temple of the soul. And we no longer see God as being outside of us or the creator or the light, but we see that the light is within us, that the light generates actually from within us, from within the soul connection in the heart. That's how it works. When this happens, we claim our field, essentially. The light begins to expand and fill the field. Let me show you. Okay, I called this soul activation. So what happens is, as this person, right, connects more and more and more, in energy, this is what they begin to look like. They look like a ball of light. They look like a ball of light. So, human on the outside, in energy, ball of light. Now, notice how there's no lower dense energies in here. I would call this embodying 0 point in the physical form. Can you do that? Yes, you can. Even as a living human being, remember that your cells, your body, your organs, your skin, your bones, you're all it's all energetic particles. If you can embody the 0 point in the heart, which is also made of all those particles of energy, and is where that soul connection is, then you can embody this within your physical form and within the entire energy field. So what happens is at first when you connect and you get activated at the soul level, it could feel like a little pinpoint of light. For me, it felt like a pinpoint of light for 5 seconds. Oh my gosh. I just had to keep practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing. And eventually it got to be a little bit bigger ball, like maybe then eventually slowly tennis ball, then bigger ball, like balloon size ball of light. And then eventually, I just spilled water everywhere. So someone just was talking to me about the living water. The living water. I thank her for that discussion. She knows who she is. I don't know if she's going to hear this video or not. But she was talking about the living water and that she had been preaching at church and talking about the living water flowing through the human being, right? I don't know everything that she said because I tend not to use those words, but what we like to do is we like to talk about these things and she from a very traditional Christian perspective, and then me growing up Christian, but now talking more with these words about energy and physics and stuff like that. And look, there's 7 billion people on the planet, and there's all different ways to reach people, aren't there? And this is the way that I speak. I try to speak in a way that can reach across people, whether, you're Christian or a different religion, or maybe you are a traditional religion or a traditional practice, like maybe you honor the goddess, or you honor Mother Earth, or you're part of the original religions or tribal religions or whatever it happens to be, or other formal religions. So I try to speak in a way where you can just take what I talk about and apply it in your life. But my background's Christian, and then I just tend to focus on energy and physics. So I'm going to take a second here and just wipe up all this beautiful water that poured all out over my desk. Okay, I'm back. I have to drink a little bit while I'm recording this because the air has been very smoky and the particulates in the air have been pretty thick at times. And so I've just been coughing ever since this fire. So basically, why would you do this? Well, when you fill your field with light, and now see how this person appears to be very calm. So when you fill your field with light, you embody 0 point in your physical body, in your energy field. Now you can live from this, because we're pretty familiar with living from this, right? We're pretty familiar with walking about, going about our day, and living like this. I mean, we know about this. We know what this is like. This is a new paradigm. This is the new earth. The human body is the earth. It's of the earth. We haven't thought about the fact that we could clear our field. We could clear the energy of our body and walk around embodying 0 point, or 5D, as some people call it, fifth dimensional frequencies. Now, this isn't something that, to my knowledge, can be measured scientifically. I'm not aware of that. If someone is, that'd be interesting to know about. The fact is that if you do these practices where you begin to reconnect with the divine in your life, reconnect with your soul, and clear your field of trauma, of denser energies, of thought loops, emotional stuff, the way that you feel changes tangibly. It's a felt difference. See this person here? Here's what their field would look like if their field was whole. Now, you know how, I don't know if any of you go to a healer, and I'm talking about an energetic healer, or you have some kind of an experience. I'm not talking about medical doctors right now, although that's a great way to get healthy, going to a medical doctor for whatever you need to go to for that. I'm talking about energy here. You get your chakras cleared. I don't know. You get a soul activation. What happens is that the field clears. If the healer does this, where they remove the negative energy, but they don't teach you how to do this for yourself, or you don't learn how to do that for yourself, then what happens is you go back to the exact same structure over time. You may slightly upgrade, like maybe you have less of the dense energy, or you call in less of it, but without the training or the empowerment, what ends up happening is we're making unconscious choices here, and those will create holes in the energy field, or call in energy that's energetically dense as the frequency that you embody. We've got needing to be saved, a feeling of disempowerment where we feel like we don't have control over our lives. There's idiot compassion that comes into play here, where someone may try to help this person, like the healer who clears the field, but doesn't teach this person the tools to do this for themselves. The other thing is that until this person is ready to change, no one else can make them change. If they're not ready, they're going to just clear it again, or they're not going to use the services of someone like that, right? Because their soul, even at a dense level, your soul always has contact with you, right? God is omnipresent, whether you're in a depressed state or a high state. So this energy is going to continue to be generated until this person is ready to change. And that's where idiot compassion comes in. If I try to push this person to change because I want them to be a certain way, or I help them in ways that I think would benefit them, but really doesn't have anything to do with what's going on for them, because I really don't know what's going on for them, that's where we do stuff that ends up hurting me. Or I create an enabling situation for this person that enables them to stay in this depressed state where it doesn't get uncomfortable enough because I've interfered with their soul path. And I'm just saying this in a space of sacred discharge, imbued by the sacred flame. So this is sort of a victim, predator, parasite loop. And why victim, predator, parasite? Well, first of all, there's parasites that attempt to suck off of our energy. We need to be able to set proper boundaries to say no to them. But if we've got holes in our field for whatever reason, usually because these situations have, we make the holes ourselves or they were made through past experiences. So parasites can come in, or parasitic energy, like, I don't know, people borrowing money from you, people taking advantage of you, people doing this and that. Then the thing about the predator is that many, many predators have had a hard time of it as well. And I'm not saying this out of idiot compassion. I'm saying this out of that's just how it is. One of the most obvious places where this is the case is child abuse. Many abusers of children were abused themselves. I'm just saying that's what the facts are. Many times. Are there people that are born this way? Sure, I could believe that. Some percentage of them are created, maybe, and some percentage of them are born that way, and the same thing with victims. So this is a loop that goes on and on and on until we declare an end to it. So this person feels disempowered. It's up to them to desire to reconnect, because it's the soul that powers us. Now, let's look at the empowered individual. Here we've got an example of an empowered individual. What does empowered mean? It's not about any other characteristic besides connecting with the soul. Ultimately, this is where the source of empowerment comes from, in my view. Now, there's a lot of people writing about empowerment, and they may have a different approach. But in my view, this is the energetic source of empowerment. It's the soul. It's the light that we are, God within the human being, the children of the Creator. Okay, when we reconnect with that energy, that higher dimensional state, that beautiful, yummy source, that God source that we are, that is embodied within us in our life force, boy, it feels so good when you reconnect with that finally. That's where the power for empowerment comes from. To be empowered, it requires taking self-responsibility, making the choice to change, making the choice to reconnect, taking action in that direction, in the physical world, but also in the non-physical world. Sometimes the actions we need to take are non-physical. It could be just changing our attitude. It could just be doing something small in the physical. It could be doing something large in the physical. It could be just taking the next step each day. Self-activation. Someone could come in and activate you or heal you or whatever. It's always the divine within you that heals yourself. If someone comes to you and does a healing, understand that it's the divine within that leaps upward as you receive this up out of you. It doesn't come from outside of you, as much as it may appear that happened. And anyone who claims credit for that personally and in that way claims power over another, that's where we get into some troubling areas all around. Gosh. That's different than acknowledging the truth of who you are. Because when you're an empowered individual, you can co-create with the divine, as I explained in part 1. So I guess there's a lot here about attitude and intention. And honestly, ultimately, that's between you and God. Only you and God know the truth of that. And you and your soul, right? Your soul as the part of God that you are. Okay, the other thing about making empowerment is that we're now making conscious choices. If I have an offer outside here in my field, let me just make a picture of that offer. All right, now here's an offer. Okay, outside my field. I can look at this offer and decide if I want to take it or not. It's a lower, denser state. By lower, I mean more compressed energetic state. If I was to bring this into my field, what's going to happen is that this is going to minimize itself and depart. And that's what I've talked about before on these videos, that the soul moves away from you when you decide to step away from its presence. God stands back and allows us free will. Yep. Okay, so what happens here, I'm just saying yup, 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 because I'm a human being, I'm not perfect, and this is basically exactly what happened. So, I'm grateful in my life where I've learned how to have gone from that to this, okay? I've gone from that to this. But what happened was recently, from actually a number of different things happened where this offer was presented outside my field, and maybe even sort of a bunch of things all happened at the same time, a little overwhelming. Okay, so here you have this man here who's in a centered state, and then you have this man here who's in his original state. Okay, when we first started the discussion about the lonely man, before we talked about how this could be healed. And the process for healing is what I described that we just went through. If the lonely man activates, and then that activation lightens up and moves the denser energy out of the field. I'm just explaining how the energy moves. It can be, a process. It could take years. It could take a few moments, right? Because I could see an offer, I could shift into considering that offer, or even taking it in, suddenly realize, no, I'm going to release that, let it go, and return to my centered state where I'm basically at 0 point in the field. So it could be a few seconds. And in fact, what I recommend, I'm giving you the basics, but there are step-by-step processes. And let me know if you're interested in that. I'd be interested to hear if you guys are. How to clear the field, how to maintain the field, all that kind of stuff. All right, so here we've got two people. It is very difficult for these two people to meet. They are in completely different energetic states of being. They're going to be like oil and water. This person is going to need this person to have a denser energetic state to interact with them. And if this person won't take that on, then they're going to maybe throw a hissy fit. Maybe they're sleeping on your couch and they steal a few bucks, throw stuff around the room and leave. I don't know. Do any of you know what I mean? I'm not saying that that's happened to me, because that one has not happened to me. But variations of these things have happened. So anyway, if you're in this state, you don't want to be around this person, right? Because if you're in this state and you're around this person, you're going to change. The light changes us. If someone who has that light presents themselves, here's what happens. Basically, it kind of makes me, if I'm this lonely man, it makes me feel smaller, okay? Someone who embodies the light, first of all, their energetic field is bigger. That's just how the mechanics of that work. Here, like we talked about, this is a more compressed state. The actual physical field or energetic field is smaller. Okay, if you could measure it, it would be a lot smaller and denser. So there's two things that are going on here. Number one, this man fears the light. Why? Because if I look up here and I see this incredible man with his connected self, he's shining the light from his being. This person may feel fear. And the reason why is because if he were to look up and see the light, it would remind him of the hidden light within himself. And the pain of that can be really, really intense. The pain of separation from God can be an extremely intense and painful thing to feel. And I believe that, and I believe that is the original source of our pain. It's essentially what we term original sin, the separation from God through birth and forgetting our divine light within. Okay, so that separation, so what happens is we know this light innately. It also, this light will cause a shift. So if this person is ready to change and they look up and they see that light and they want to shift, then that's perfect. But it needs to really be at their direction, at the pace that works for them. all in divine timing. Let me give you an example. If you have somebody like this in your life, right, and you can't, okay, so here this person has gotten the idea, as we said before, that they could change. This is pretty challenging. If this is you here, you can't change this person yourself. But what you can do is role model in your own life, and in energy, you can offer the light. Now, rather than sending it into their field, which would be crossing their boundaries, even though it's the light, it's still invading the boundaries, okay? But if you offer it out here, okay, if you offer it even within your field, the knowing that it's possible for this person to connect with God or to connect with the light, or however you see that. I'm using the visual representation of, I actually just do this in energy. I just know that it's there because I know their higher self is there. I know their soul is there when they're ready to awaken to that. And I see the soul as basically like the sun, okay? To me, the sun reminds us of the soul, a big ball of light, who we truly are. Anyway, so when this person gets the idea that they might want to change, then they can then reach out for that. Okay, and it'll be supplied to them. You don't need to supply them with anything. That's what I'm saying here. Like, you don't want to get into narcissism here, right? And be a source of supply. That's where we get into idiot compassion. Simply by maintaining your boundaries, shining your light here, and knowing that this is available to this person from their own empowerment. Now, if this person asks me a question, if I'm this man and this person asks me a question, will I answer, related to, we're talking about healing here? Sure. But if I'm out here offering, oh, hey, how about this? How about this? How about this? How about this? Then you're in a situation where it's almost like they're being beaten up with the light. Because every offer of light brings the potential of feeling that pain of separation from the true self within, which is still covered over. The pain of opening the heart can be very, very intense. I have been through it myself. It can be very, very intense. And the person has to be ready. And it can start, the reason that I put the light here up at their crown is because a lot of times this starts with mental information. It starts with reading about all the things that are going on in the world. Red pilling, right? That's the name for that. All the things that are going on in the world that we didn't know, and did you know this, and did you know this is really this, and all this stuff. To me, this mental awakening is a gateway. It's a gateway that invites us to eventually to reconnect with God. I went through that over a decade ago now, and what happened is, through all the red pilling that I did, and it certainly is nowhere near the level of information that is now available, I realized that there were so many things in the world and in society that were so messed up and that seemed to actually be planned that way. I realized that it seemed to all be, the purpose of it all seemed to be to cause me to reach out to God for a miracle. Because it seemed like only a miracle could fix all of what I learned and saw around me once I started to have my eyes uncovered and learn about what the dynamics were that were going on in various things. What I realized was that whole awakening process seemed to be an invitation to me to connect with God and to ask God for a miracle to heal our world and to heal me, to heal my life, and to heal the society that I live in, to heal the land, to heal the people, to heal our country, to heal my relationship with others, to heal the divide between people based on whatever labels people happen to perceive, and to bring God's light back into my life personally, and to ask that God's light be brought back into whatever way works, right? It's simply about connecting with the light. It doesn't matter. It's not about a particular religion or anything like that. The overall mechanics are that once we reconnect, our life changes for the better. Our life changes for the better. The thing that gave me hope the earlier conversation I referenced today. I have a friend who's an intuitive and also trained in science, interestingly. We were talking about the fires because I was feeling badly about the fact that things are on fire, and I won't go into all the details and the red pilling that I've gone through learning about what, fires in California. But here's what happened. I decided to adjust the one of the images of the sky. And so I basically darkened the light, like I turned up the contrast as far as it could go. What happened was we were looking at this image and then saw this figure in the sky. Look, here's an eye, here's an eye, here's the nose, here's the nostril, right here, there's the nostril, right? Here's a sort of a more closed nostril. Here's the mouth, and then here's a beard. And my friend Alex basically said, whoa, that looks like Santa Claus almost. And I thought, oh my gosh, look at that. She's right. In the meantime, I saw this face right here. I saw an eye, a nose, and a mouth with sort of a bit of a smile. And it was looking down that way. What was down there? The sun and the direction of the fire. And she said to me, it looks like Santa Claus, but it also looks a bit like the north wind. Here's an image of the the traditional image of the north wind spirit of the air, okay? Is that amazing or what? That could be present here. And I'll tell you what, this gave me hope because I had seen this strange and interesting beam earlier. And I adjusted it in ways where the light beam became more prominent in the picture. These are all the same pictures with the light adjusted different ways. Here it's really glowing. And on the one hand, I wondered if there was some kind of technological involvement with all of this. And it looks more like a transmission of maybe like in a spectrum. I don't know if it's ultraviolet or microwave or whatever, because it's a direct straight line horizontally over the ground. And it had me just kind of perplexed and concerned. I just didn't know what to think about it. But when I saw the image of the spirit here in the sky, and then I saw this other one kind of more friendly, looking down, looking out, looking at what was going on and working with the north wind. Okay, and here's the sun shining some light in that direction as well. It made me feel better because you know what? God is the one who's in control. I believe that some of these strange things that we perceive, whether it be technology or some other kind of factor, I believe that some of these things are operated in the highest good by human beings. Maybe some of them are operated against life by some human beings, I don't know. But God uses all these things in the highest good and to work in the highest good. And you and I have a voice here. You and I can say what we consent to and what we agree with happening in our world. Now, let's go to the Schumann resonance. Here we are at the Schumann resonance. First of all, it's a very fiery image here. And my friend and I talked through this today. She was focused on the fire and the fact that those who are in denser environments, okay, so this is like the lonely man who has not activated the soul connection, hasn't reconnected with God. Okay, so those who are in denser environments are going to burn harder in the flames. It's going to be more challenging for them. And that's what you see here. This is energy that's still sort of stuck in the matrix, committed, if you will, to the matrix. Here, look at this. In my last video, I talked about how the dense energy was attempting to reform and gain a foothold after it had been freed and moved out of our systems by that big waves of light that came in mid-August. This is why I did that whole teaching section about human energy field earlier. So here, this dense energy out here, if this person has activated the light within, and I'm just going to show that with we'll just say yellow for the sun, because that's the easiest, quickest way for me to do that. Okay, if this person has now activated the light within, okay, and is beginning to reconnect with God, all right, then that moves this dense energy back out through the field. And then they can go through a process of clearing it from the body, clearing it from the field, closing the holes in the field, maintaining a more healthy field structure. But this energy here is on offer. Hey, we could come back in. You could shut down again, go back into that depressed state. That's what this is in the Schumann. Do you see that? Here. Let me come back in. Let me get back into the structure that you humans have created. Because this is very, very dense energy. It's really not, it's almost like it's not native to the human system. It's almost like it's not native. Human beings are born with a heart. We're children of God. This isn't native to us. But those of us, and this is the red here, the dense red, those of us who have shut down, who have chosen a path of turning away from the light, or where we just haven't reconnected through because a person's traumatized, or they're mind controlled in some way, or they've been convinced by propaganda that X, Y, and Z is the real world that the Matrix is the real world, whatever the details of that are. This is a much harder time. Okay, this is like the compressed state of the lonely man. Now here is like the awakening. Do you see that? Where the lonely man awakens in the mind and thinks, I could have a better life. Okay, so see how the light begins to come in here. But it's not very imbued into this part of the quote-unquote matrix. Okay, so this would be, for example, if the lonely man had the idea that he could awaken, but hadn't done anything yet. So the field is still imbued with this. See the dense energy here, the compacted red. There's an idea, but really no action's been taken. Maybe the person just doesn't know what to do, how to empower themselves yet. They haven't found the way that they're going to proceed. Here's these even darker forces, denser energies, kind of almost parasitic energies that are attached to the lower state in their field structure. Remember how I talked about that it was almost like a depression, right? Like there's a scoop in the field where other energies of a dense nature would flow in. Well, here we are. The field is scooped down. Okay, so this structure goes even lower. And then you've got these dense energies that are attached to the structure here. And these might be past experiences, these might be actual entities, these might be feelings of despair, whatever it happens to be, okay? And here's one outside of these beings, and it's just floating around looking for a home. If it could convince this being to take on more depression or to get more angry, then it could flow into that person. That being's, this line is representing a being that's like the lonely man without any change. Okay, so if this external environment could convince the being that has this straight up and down structure in the matrix, this dense compacted red, then it would join it. It's just really tough. It's a really tough environment when we don't understand these things. Here's another layer of energy looking for somewhere to attach to, and it looks like it's almost pretty much attached here, because this energy line within the matrix, okay, so there's awareness that has been brought here, but now there's these energies, maybe they've invited a bunch of people into their home that aren't going to pitch in monetarily, or they're not doing any chores and their dogs are pooping on the floors, and and they're doing drugs and staying out late or something. I don't know. I've had clients come to me with this sort of a problem, more than one. All right, so then we're over here, okay? So now here's the lonely man, but now he's elevated himself. I know this doesn't look like a person, but I'm looking at the field structure. Okay, I'm looking at the energy. So remember in the movie The Matrix, he sits at the computer and he's 100% natural born human, right? And he's one of the few. And he's sitting there looking at all the little green alien-like symbols on the computers. And he explains to Neo, this is the movie The Matrix, 1999 movie. And Neo is brought into the quote-unquote real world, and he's just learning about what it is now. So this natural-born human who lives in the real world looks into the world of the matrix through the computer, and there's all these lines and symbols on the computer screen, and he says, see that combination, that's a woman walking. That combination, there she's got the red dress. That combination, that's like a building, or that combination, that's a stairwell, however it is. This is what I'm trying to explain here, that I'm looking at this and reading the energy like that. That's what I'm sharing with you. And I'm trying to explain to you how it relates to what we perceive as the real world, but is truly being trapped within the matrix. Look, okay, here's the lonely man. Hold on, let me get where is he? Where he's got all the stuff. Okay, so right here's the lonely man, okay? This man is essentially trapped within the matrix. Why? Because to be trapped within the matrix means to be completely disconnected from the light of the soul. Ta-da! And that is what this is. Right here, see? I'm reading the symbols and hold on, actually it's right here. This dark one. I'm reading the symbols and explaining to you what I see. This combination of symbols, that's what it means. Based upon a lot of stuff that I'm not going to talk about that I see here, because I want to stay focused, but you can see the lines of the matrix here in the background, okay? This right here is that lonely man disconnected. This right here, see that? Is the man awakening. Hold on. Here we go. Ta-da! He begins to awaken. Oh, hold on. It's a little smaller. It's not quite that big yet in that part. Okay? We still got some of this density here. That is this. Okay, now he begins to awaken and starts to do some stuff. So that's here. Starts to do some stuff. Okay, now he's cleared his head. He's cleared the smoke from his head. Maybe he's reconnecting with the light that he perceives is outside of himself. That's this right here. Whoa, now we've got a big awakening, okay? So now we are, ta-da! Maybe he's even become heart activated now. Okay, so the light is starting to shift some of this darkness out of his field. But guess what happens? Watch this. See? As he awakens, I know this doesn't look like a person. I'm reading the energy structure, okay? He's still in the matrix, but he's starting to become a living human being. Now see, look. I know this doesn't look like a human, but it does look like a being. In fact, to me it looks like a rabbit. Here's the ear. Here's one eye. Here's the other eye is red. The nose is white. Half the rabbit is white, and then here's its top of its body. Here's the bottom. Here's the butt. Then down there's the feet. The left side of the body is red. Okay, so it's red going down here, 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 and this side of the body. You can make it a little smaller so you can see. See that? See how half of its face is red? Half of its face is white. It's the yin-yang, dark and light. Okay, shadow and light. So in wholeness, we are both of those, right? We're the shadow and the light. So this person is starting to get more balanced. It's more like this. Okay, so he's starting to get more light into his field. Hold on one sec. He's become activated, okay? So the dense energy now, let's say, has moved back out through the holes. Now the energy is going the other way. Why? Because this is filling up the space, all right? And this lighter energy takes up way more room in the field. So as it begins to fill the field, and the person is there, right? But now we're just looking at their energy. As it begins to fill the field, it starts to close these holes. It starts to close these holes, okay? Starts to close the holes. And this energy basically flees, because darkness flees from light unless it's ready to transmute back to the light. It'll either feel pain or fear. It runs away until it's ready to return to the light. What you have here is now this person, the lonely man, is becoming balanced in his field again and is healing. But you see, he's still got a bunch of clearing to do. And in fact, if he starts to look deeper and deeper through his experience, through the path of the spiritual warrior, right, he will uncover the parasites in his field, the parasitic energies, the experiences that were less than pleasant, represented by this dense dark lines, okay? These are the experiences that were less than pleasant. They were unpleasant. They were traumatic. They may have been from this lifetime. They may have been from other lifetimes. And then also they may be parasitic energy here coming in crosswise, okay, that attached itself to the structure, or that is offering to reattach to the structure. Hey, why do that healing path? It's challenging, let this back in. No, right? That's the offer. And, here's another one. And I see faces in up here. There's a face there. There's faces here. This is another being that is bringing in some light. This may be a being of chaos, actually. You see the face is red here? And they have a lot of darkness down here in the field, okay? Because look, some of us incarnate as children of the light, right? And some of us incarnate as children of the darkness. Both are of God. Both are of the Creator. This is something I don't want to get into too much right now. But some beings willfully choose as part of their soul path to create as part of the chaos crew. Now, those who are here to be a part of the team for chaos, some of them are just as unaware as the rest of us have been, but some of them are very aware. And basically, the path to ascension for the chaos side is to return to God from chaos. That's the path of the prodigal son, the parable that Jesus teaches, the return of the brother who lived the life of one of the chaos crew, one of the forces of darkness, right? Allowed that force to flow through them, or was born that way, or whatever it is. When the prodigal son returned to his father's home, he was accepted as perfect and a full member of the family. Why? Because that's how God created that person. Or they chose to pursue that path and they were forgiven. But look, why am I talking about this? It's a more advanced concept, but it relates to what I said before. Let's go to this image that I call the two meet. Who is the victim and who is the oppressor? Who's the victim and who is the predator here? From this person's perspective, this being might be the predator. Because energetically, they're way bigger and possibly scary. Because they would cause this person to feel pain. This person here might trigger this person, right? Because they're going to come offering this dense energy. This person may break open their field to interact, and therefore this person may trigger them. And then they'll have to jigger their field and get back into centeredness, or maybe they bring some of that in and go through another learning process. Or maybe they find the darkness that was within in the next layer of the shadow to be uncovered. What I'm trying to say is that all experiences are valid and the Creator doesn't judge. The human being is the one that judges our experience. And if we perceive another as being that we're the victim and they're the predator, or that we're the predator and they're the victim, it's really all relative and a matter of perspective. And it's also a matter of projection. Ultimately, even if I'm this person who appears to be at 0 point, if I have been triggered, I can't truly see them. I see whatever is projected on this screen about them. And if I'm this person, I can't really see who this person is. I see whatever is projected on this screen. Until we're both in a state of empowered wholeness, it's hard to see and know the other person. Once we're in a state of energetic sovereignty, that can change. But the way that I'm seen, if I'm this man in a centered, empowered state of energetic sovereignty, is that I offer what I wish to share. No one can come into my field. I offer what I wish to share, and I share it freely if I wish to do that, or not. I have the skills to defend and protect my boundaries. Call that shadow tools or not. When I use them from a state of wholeness, they are in service to the divine. It's okay to protect yourself and your energy field as you're guided. And these get into some sort of concepts where God within you is the best guide. Your conscience as a human being is the best guide. You know, how you are prompted within. But yeah, the human conscience, pretty interesting thing. Okay, let's go back to this. So that's what I see here. You know, this to me looks like a bigger version of the fist that we saw around August 8th at the 8-8 gateway. It's basically an offer. It looks like a wave of white resonance, but if you remember the fist, it looked like this. The fist had 6 fingers. It wasn't human. It was of the dark forces, and it showed up right before Lilith showed up, right before the 8-8 gateway. She was, where was she? She's in here somewhere. Oh, there she is, with her crown, the dark goddess, the shadow land of the feminine, and part of the strength of the feminine. Okay, so here the fist is fully formed, showed itself to us, showed it what it was really about, right before the 8-8 gateway. Now here, it presents itself much larger, and it's also surrounded by the green, which is human, right? The human frequency. So is it more powerful? Is it more present in our consciousness? I don't know what the answer is, but I know it's dripping with astral energy. Whether that transmutes or whether a person lives with that in their field is up to us. Here's the transmuted state, right, with the soul connection in the heart. And here is the state of just living with all this astral energy hanging in the field, feeling pretty bad. See? So I'm trying to show you how I read this. But I'm also wanting to share how these energies affect the human energy field. I know it's been a longer video. If you've stayed with me the whole time, fantastic. I may break it into little pieces so that there can be clips. If you'd like to have clips of this, let me know. If you'd like to have little shorter pieces. But I have noticed that some people seem to like the longer videos, although this is over 2 hours, so I don't know what it'll be when I edit it. Listen, I just want to say something. Thank you so much for being here. I love you guys. I love doing this work, and thank you for sharing this joy with me.